Hello, it's Deaf Awareness Month, and I'll be interviewing my parents. Tell us your names.
My name is Maria Pacheco. My name is Felipe Pacheco.
Can you tell us about your family background? Are they hearing or deaf like you?
In my family, deafness is generational. I have many deaf family members. My parents are deaf, my son is deaf. I have some aunts and cousins that are deaf. I have 4 sisters who are all deaf. Their kids, who are my nieces and nephews, are deaf. There are many of us who are deaf. The generational deafness is just something that we consider to be normal.
Right, generational deafness. What about you? Is your family background similar or different?
I'm the only deaf person in my family. Everyone else is hearing.
Oh, I see. Did you grow up using sign language? Did your family sign at all?
My family didn't use sign language. They used lip reading and communicated orally.
Okay, so only oral communication. Explain why you moved here to the United States from Mexico.
When I was living in Mexico, my son was born deaf. And I remember thinking back to my schooling. My education was lousy, and I didn't learn much. I thought of my baby son, not wanting the same for him, and I knew he would get a better education in the United States. When we moved here, I got my son started in school and applied for different programs like hearing aids and speech therapy for my son. He really progressed in the deaf program at the local high school he went to. He succeeded and graduated. I am content because he can sign and write. I can't write because of my experience attending school in Mexico. We moved here so my son could succeed in school and graduate. I am happy for that. The education was just better here.
Going to school in Mexico, what grade did you reach? Did you go on to graduate high school?
At 6th grade, I finished school. After that, I transferred to a program where I learned sewing for 2 years, and that's it. It's very short. They don't have schooling where you go on from middle school to high school to college. Just a 6th grade education and you go on to learn some sewing. Their education isn't good. Here you get a good education.
When you moved here with your son, while he was in school, you said you got help for things like hearing aids?
Yes, they did. The school helped me with transportation. A bus picked my son up. They helped me with hearing aids. They also helped with getting him into other activities like sports. So it was enjoyable.
In Mexico, you used Mexican Sign Language. Your parents are deaf and other family members are deaf, and so you were used to using Mexican Sign Language. When you moved to the United States, how was it learning an entirely new language?
Yes, since many of us on my mom's side of the family are deaf, back home we use Mexican Sign Language. What happened was my sister traveled to the United States, and when she came back, she was signing differently. She was signing in American Sign Language. Later on, an American came to visit us in Mexico, and it was hard to understand them at first. I started to learn and could sign words like sorry and excuse me. Eventually, when I moved here, I learned more and more. When I had meetings with my son's teacher, they would sign ASL. I would later take the signs that I saw from my son's teacher and ask my friends, what does this sign mean? And they would tell me. From then on, I understood more and more. Each time I went to my son's school meetings, I understood more of the language, and now I sign better than I did.
Does the same go for you?
It's different.
Different how?
I had her teaching me American Sign Language a little bit at a time.
Could you explain a little bit more about your signing ability compared to Dad's signing? Because of the difference in your family's background, how did that affect it?
Since my family includes many of us who are deaf, we are used to signing amongst each other. He's different because he grew up in a hearing family. Being the only deaf person, he had to rely on oral communication and gesturing. When we got married, we realized they didn't understand us when we would sign to each other, and so I taught a little bit of sign language to his family. His family would try to sign to him a bit, and he sort of just nodded his head, not fully understanding. I understood what they were trying to say, so I explained to him, and he understood that way. They tried communicating orally with him for so long that every time they communicated, he just didn't pay attention. I explained to him that he should pay attention, but he just kept on ignoring them. So I taught him until he eventually got it.
Basically, it's the differences in how you grew up and your family backgrounds. When you moved here from Mexico, did you meet other deaf immigrants from other countries, or was it mostly Americans?
I did meet many people who immigrated here, mostly from Mexico. One person from Japan, but mostly Mexico. A variety of people, really. The other Mexicans I met still use Mexican Sign Language and American Sign Language. There are many people I know who use both. They will sign in ASL, slip into LSM, and back to ASL. I do it too. I would be signing in ASL and slip in some LSM. And so we all do it. It's fine. And we are all friends. So yeah, I would say mostly Mexican immigrants, and like I said, one Japanese. There's another person, but I forgot where they said they were from. He's the same. We both use a mix of ASL and LSM.
Right, so you use both. LSM, you've known since you were a child. After learning ASL, you use both and sometimes a mix of the two.
Yes.
And then you also met and are friends with others who do the same.
A little, yes. They do sign in ASL and then mix in signs from their country, yes.